You're overcomplicating everything. Have you ever found yourself stuck in a loop where you just can't figure out why things aren't going the way you want? Or maybe you've been thinking about something like starting a YouTube channel, signing up for the gym, or something like that for so long it feels impossible to take the first step. You sit there overanalyzing, stressing over the smallest details, trying to make everything perfect and planning out every little move. But the result is that you get stuck, overwhelmed, and even frustrated. If this sounds familiar, then you're not alone. You're not the only one who's been caught in the trap of overcomplicating things. This is a habit that many of us develop over time without even realizing it. Overcomplicating things happens when we get caught up in the details, convinced that if we don't account for every possible scenario or outcome, we won't succeed. But in reality, this behavior only holds us back. In fact, the more we overcomplicate, the more we're slowing ourselves down, making tasks harder than they need to be, and distancing ourselves from the simple solutions that actually work. So, why do we do this? Why do we make everything so hard, much harder than it needs to be? The answer lies in our minds. Our brains are wired to seek patterns and make sense of the world around us. But sometimes, we go overboard. We start adding layers to problems that don't need them, making them seem bigger and more difficult than they really are. It's like looking at a simple puzzle and convincing yourself that you need to find the most complex way to solve it. But the truth is, simplicity is often the answer. Life is already complicated enough without us making it worse, so why do we keep adding complexity to everything? Let's dig into how this overcomplication shows up in our lives and how we can begin to simplify things. Let's talk about decision-making. How many times have you found yourself staring at a decision, whether it's what to have for dinner, what career path to follow, or what kind of vacation you should take, and spent hours, days, or even weeks trying to figure out the right choice? The pressure to make the perfect decision can become paralyzing. The more you overthink it, the more options you consider, the more advice you seek from others, the more you research, and the more confused you become. You start overanalyzing every possible outcome and worry that any choice you make could be the wrong one. This is a classic case of overcomplication. It's the fear of making a mistake, of choosing the wrong thing, that leads us to spin in circles. We think that the longer we look, the more we'll be able to uncover the perfect solution. But what we're really doing is adding layers of unnecessary complexity. Here's the thing. Not every decision needs to be perfect. In fact, most decisions don't require all that time and energy. In many cases, the best decision isn't the one that's the most carefully planned, but the one that's made with intention and trust in yourself. We don't need to have every possible outcome figured out. Sometimes we just need to make a decision and move forward. And if it turns out that it wasn't the right one, we can adjust and learn from it. Life is dynamic. It's not static. Overcomplicating decisions by weighing every possible outcome only serves to delay action, and in some cases prevent us from making any decision at all. So the first step in overcoming this overcomplication is accepting that it's okay not to have everything figured out right away. Trust yourself enough to make the best decision you can with the information you have at the time, and know that you can always change course if needed. The second place where we often overcomplicate things is in our relationships. How many times have you found yourself analyzing what someone said, looking for hidden meanings, overthinking whether or not you're saying the right thing, or worrying about how your words and actions will be perceived? When we're overly concerned with how others perceive us, we make things more difficult than they need to be. We put unnecessary pressure on ourselves to act a certain way, be perfect, or communicate in a way people like us. But this creates a sense of tension, anxiety, and confusion. What we fail to realize is that the most genuine and fulfilling relationships often stem from simplicity and authenticity. We don't need to overanalyze every interaction. We don't need to stress about how we're coming across. The truth is, people appreciate simplicity and sincerity. When you show up as your authentic self, without all the overthinking and unnecessary complexity, you create space for genuine connections to form. Overcomplicating our relationships only leads to misunderstandings, miscommunications, and unnecessary drama. Instead of overthinking what others might think, try simplifying things by focusing on clear and honest communication, setting healthy boundaries, and giving yourself and others the grace to be imperfect. When you let go of the need to complicate every conversation and interaction, you allow yourself to experience relationships in a much more natural and fulfilling way. Next, let's talk about the way we approach our goals. So often, we come up with grand plans and get so caught up in the details that we completely lose sight of the bigger picture. We think that achieving something big requires a long list of steps, each of which needs to be meticulously planned out and perfected. We start piling on tasks, obligations, and schedules, believing that more structure will get us closer to our goals. But in reality, this kind of overcomplication only leads to burnout and frustration. The truth is, the more we focus on the process and the structure, the less we focus on the purpose of the goal itself. It's like trying to run a race while carrying a backpack full of rocks. We get so bogged down by unnecessary steps and complications that we forget to focus on the core of what we're trying to accomplish. The most successful people are often the ones who simplify their approach. They break down their goals into manageable, bite-sized tasks, and they focus on making consistent progress rather than trying to control every variable. So if you find yourself overwhelmed by your goals, take a step back and ask yourself, what is the simplest path to achieving this goal? What are the most important steps I need to take right now? What's the one thing I can do today to move forward? Simplify the process. Focus on the essentials and allow yourself to take action without getting lost in the details. Finally, let's talk about the way we live our daily lives. In a world where we're constantly bombarded with messages about what we should be doing, it's easy to overcomplicate even the most basic of routines. We think we need to have the perfect morning routine, the perfect exercise plan, the perfect work-life balance, and the perfect self-care routine. But this pursuit of perfection can be exhausting and counterproductive. The key to simplicity in daily life is letting go of the need for everything to be perfect. Life isn't about ticking off a long list of tasks every day. It's about finding balance, being present, and giving yourself permission to be human. Instead of stressing over whether you've done everything right, focus on the things that truly matter to you. What do you need today? What would make you feel grounded and fulfilled? When you take the pressure off yourself to overcomplicate your routine, you make room for the things that truly nourish your mind, body, and soul. One simple way to embrace simplicity is by focusing on one thing at a time. Multitasking might seem like a good idea, but in reality, it can lead to stress and burnout. By simplifying your daily tasks and focusing on one thing at a time, you'll be able to complete them more efficiently and with greater satisfaction. The more you allow yourself to be present in each moment, the more you'll realize that life doesn't have to be complicated to be fulfilling. Life is full of opportunities to simplify, whether it's by making decisions faster, communicating more clearly, or focusing on what matters most. It's time to stop overcomplicating everything. Let go of the need for perfection. Release the fear of making mistakes and trust that things don't always need to be as complicated as they seem. When we stop overthinking, stop overanalyzing, and stop trying to control every detail, we open ourselves up to a simpler, more peaceful way of living. So, the next time you find yourself caught in the trap of overcomplication, take a deep breath and remember that simplicity is often the key to finding clarity, peace, and success. Don't make life harder than it has to be. Choose simplicity, choose ease, and most importantly, choose to enjoy the journey. As we dive deeper into how we tend to overcomplicate things in our daily lives, it's important to recognize that simplifying doesn't mean abandoning our ambitions, goals, or aspirations. It simply means rethinking the way we approach them. Overcomplicating things often stems from the belief that success requires the perfect strategy, or that we need to have every aspect of our lives perfectly aligned. But the truth is, the most successful people aren't the ones who have everything figured out down to the smallest detail. They're the ones who know how to focus on what truly matters and take consistent, uncomplicated steps toward their goals. Let's talk about perfectionism for a second, because that's a big contributor to overcomplicating things. Perfectionism is the belief that everything has to be flawless, and any mistake or imperfection is a failure. It sounds like a noble pursuit at first, striving to do your best and never settling for mediocrity. But in reality, perfectionism leads to procrastination, burnout, and a sense of never being good enough. It's a never-ending chase for something unattainable. You put so much pressure on yourself to be perfect that it can actually paralyze you, leaving you feeling overwhelmed and stuck. So how do you break free from this cycle? The first step is to let go of the need to be perfect. Accept that mistakes are part of the process and they're not signs of failure, they're opportunities to learn. When you embrace imperfection, you free yourself from the chains of overcomplication. You allow yourself to move forward without fear of making a mistake. You give yourself the space to make progress rather than constantly trying to be flawless. Remember, done is better than perfect. If you wait for everything to be perfect before you take action, you'll never get started. Instead, aim for progress over perfection, and trust that perfection will come naturally with time and experience. Now, another area where we often overcomplicate things is in our thinking patterns. How many times have you caught yourself spiraling into negative thought loops or worst-case scenarios? When we start overthinking, we create problems that don't even exist yet, and we waste valuable energy on things that may never happen. It's a cognitive distortion known as catastrophizing, where we predict the worst possible outcome in every situation, even when it's unlikely. This type of thinking can cause unnecessary stress and anxiety, and it makes everything seem harder than it actually is. One way to combat this is through mindfulness. Mindfulness is about being present in the moment and observing your thoughts without judgment. When you notice yourself getting caught up in a negative thought spiral, take a step back and observe those thoughts as if they were passing clouds. Don't judge yourself for having them. Just let them come and go. By practicing mindfulness, you can start to break free from overthinking and take things one step at a time. Instead of letting your mind run wild with endless possibilities and outcomes, focus on what's happening right now. What's the next small step you can take? When you stop overcomplicating things with negative thoughts and mental chatter, you create space for clarity and action. Another area where we tend to overcomplicate is in the way we approach tasks. Whether it's work, school, or personal projects, we often feel the need to make everything bigger than it needs to be. We try to plan every single detail, making the process feel overwhelming before we even begin. It's like trying to run a marathon without ever taking the first step. We think we need to do everything perfectly and have everything planned out before we can start. But what if I told you that the most successful people don't have perfect plans? They just start. They take imperfect action. They focus on the next step, not the entire journey. One way to simplify tasks is by breaking them down into smaller, more manageable pieces. Instead of thinking about everything you need to do, focus on just one thing at a time. If you're working on a big project, start with a small task that you can easily accomplish. Once you complete that, move on to the next task. Little by little, you'll make progress without feeling overwhelmed by the sheer size of the task ahead of you. The key is to make things manageable. When you break down a big project into smaller tasks, it's easier to take action and make progress without overcomplicating things. Now let's talk about the role of expectations. We often overcomplicate our lives because we set unrealistic expectations for ourselves. We think that we should always be successful, happy, and productive, but life doesn't work that way. There are ups and downs, and not everything will go according to plan. When you set yourself up with overly high expectations, you're setting yourself up for disappointment and frustration. Instead of expecting perfection or constant success, try focusing on doing your best and being kind to yourself when things don't go as planned. A huge part of simplifying your life is learning to manage your expectations. Don't expect everything to be easy or to go exactly as you imagined. Instead, expect challenges, setbacks, and moments of imperfection. When you let go of the need for everything to be perfect, you free yourself from the pressure to overcomplicate. You give yourself the freedom to fail, to learn, and to grow. Life is a journey, not a destination, and by releasing the pressure of high expectations, you can enjoy the ride more. So, what's the takeaway from all of this? The main point is simple. We often overcomplicate our lives because we're caught in the trap of perfectionism, fear, negative thinking, and unrealistic expectations. We get so wrapped up in trying to control every detail, plan for every possibility, and make everything perfect that we lose sight of the bigger picture. But life doesn't have to be complicated. The key to simplifying things is embracing imperfection, letting go of fear, managing your expectations, and focusing on the present moment. When you stop overthinking and overcomplicating everything, you create space for clarity, focus, and action. By learning to accept ourselves as we are, flaws, mistakes, and all, we remove the need to seek approval constantly. We realize that our worth doesn't depend on how others perceive us, and we can focus on what we value. This freedom from seeking approval allows us to simplify our actions and decisions. We become more authentic, less self-conscious, and more confident in who we are. When we stop overcomplicating our actions to win others' approval, we start living more in line with our true selves, and that leads to a sense of peace and fulfillment. Let's talk about the role of technology in overcomplicating things. We live in a digital age where information is at our fingertips, and this constant stream of notifications, emails, and social media updates has made our lives feel more chaotic than ever. On one hand, technology has made life easier by giving us access to a world of knowledge and resources. But on the other hand, it has made things unnecessarily complicated by bombarding us with constant distractions. Our phones ping at all hours, pulling us away from what's truly important. Social media encourages comparison, making us feel like we're not doing enough or being enough. News feeds constantly present us with doom and gloom, filling our minds with unnecessary stress. The solution to simplifying your life in the digital age is creating boundaries. You don't need to be available 24/7, and you don't need to keep up with every notification or trend. Start by limiting your screen time. Set designated hours for checking your phone and stick to them. Create times of the day where you're offline, focusing solely on your own thoughts, your work, or your relationships without the distraction of a device. When you disconnect from the constant noise, you create space for mental clarity, focus, and relaxation. You'll find that you can focus on what really matters, your goals, your relationships, and your well-being, without being overwhelmed by the pressure of keeping up with the digital world. Another crucial element of simplifying your life is learning to say no. It's so easy to say yes to every request, every invitation, every opportunity that comes your way. But this overcommitment leads to stress and burnout. Every time you say yes to something, you're saying no to something else. Saying yes to too many things can cause you to spread yourself too thin, leaving you with little time for the things that truly matter. To simplify your life, you need to get comfortable with saying no. It's okay to turn down opportunities that don't align with your values, your goals, or your well-being. Saying no gives you more control over your time and energy. It allows you to prioritize what's truly important to you and say yes to the things that move you closer to your goals. By saying no, you create space for the things that will bring you joy, fulfillment, and peace. So far, we've touched on simplifying the way we make decisions, manage our relationships, approach our goals, and even handle the pressure of modern life. The next area we need to discuss is the way we manage our emotions. Overcomplicating emotions can make us feel like we're constantly battling ourselves, unable to find peace. We often think we need to control our emotions, suppress them, or analyze them until we understand them completely. But the truth is, emotions are complex, and sometimes trying to dissect every feeling only makes it worse. Instead of overcomplicating your emotions, try to accept them as they come. Don't judge yourself for feeling anxious, sad, or angry. Instead, allow yourself to experience your emotions fully and without shame. When you stop overthinking your feelings, you give yourself the freedom to move through them more easily and with less resistance. Emotions are part of being human, and when we stop trying to control or overcomplicate them, we experience a deeper sense of peace and acceptance. By simplifying your relationship with your emotions, you allow yourself to experience life more fully and with less internal conflict. As we continue to examine the idea of simplifying and eliminating overcomplication, one area we can't overlook is our physical environment. You'd be surprised how much your surroundings influence your mental state. When our homes, workspaces, or even our digital environments are cluttered, it can lead to a feeling of chaos and overwhelm. It's almost like your brain is trying to process not just the tasks in front of you, but also the visual mess that's around you. This constant barrage of stimuli can make it harder to focus, make decisions, and take action. So how can we simplify our environments? It starts with decluttering. Look around you. What items, tasks, or obligations are weighing you down? Take a step back and assess what you really need. What adds value to your life, and what is simply taking up space? A minimalist approach doesn't mean you have to get rid of everything, but it's about being intentional with the things you keep around you. If an item or possession no longer serves a purpose or brings you joy, consider letting it go. If a particular task or responsibility feels like it's no longer aligned with your current goals or values, don't be afraid to scale back or remove it from your plate entirely. A clean and organized space helps create a calm, focused mindset. It's easier to concentrate, think clearly, and feel at ease when your physical environment isn't overwhelming you with unnecessary distractions. The act of decluttering your space is a form of simplification that can be applied to your mental state as well. Just as you remove physical clutter, you can also remove mental clutter by setting clear intentions and focusing on the things that matter most. Along with decluttering, another key aspect of simplifying your life is simplifying your schedule. Many of us fill our days with endless to-do lists, appointments, and commitments, and we end up running on empty. We try to do everything, and we often find ourselves rushing from one thing to the next, constantly playing catch-up. But this frantic pace is a major contributor to burnout and stress. Instead of overcomplicating your schedule with countless tasks and obligations, learn to prioritize. One way to do this is by implementing time blocking. This method allows you to dedicate specific chunks of time to different tasks, rather than letting everything blur together. For example, if you're working on a project, Set aside a specific time frame for it and avoid distractions during that time. By time blocking, you're giving yourself permission to focus on one thing at a time without feeling like you have to juggle everything all at once. It's an effective strategy for breaking down your tasks into manageable pieces and eliminating the overwhelm that often comes with a packed schedule. When you simplify your schedule, you also create space for rest and self-care. In a world that glorifies productivity, it's easy to feel guilty for taking breaks or saying no to additional tasks. But rest is essential for maintaining your mental and physical health. Without rest, your body and mind can't recharge, and you'll eventually hit a wall. When you intentionally create time for rest, relaxation, and activities that bring you joy, you allow yourself to be more productive, focused, and energized in the long run. Another aspect of simplifying your life is focusing on your health. We often overcomplicate our approach to health by jumping from one diet trend to the next or following the latest fitness fads. While it's great to explore new ways to take care of your body, the foundation of good health is actually quite simple. Focus on eating whole, nutritious foods, exercising regularly, getting enough sleep, and managing stress. These are the building blocks of a healthy lifestyle, and you don't need to complicate it with the latest wellness trends. By taking a balanced, simple approach to health, you can avoid the confusion and frustration that comes with trying to keep up with every new health trend. Instead, prioritize the basics and you'll see lasting results. Another powerful way to simplify your life is through developing a growth mindset. When we overcomplicate things, it's often because we view challenges and setbacks as failures. We get discouraged and believe that we're not good enough, that we'll never succeed, or that we're not cut out for certain goals. But a growth mindset, believing that you can learn, grow, and improve over time, helps you approach challenges with a sense of curiosity and resilience. When you view mistakes and setbacks as opportunities to learn, you take the pressure off yourself to be perfect. You stop overcomplicating things by worrying about every potential obstacle, and instead you focus on the process of learning and also allows you to take risks without the fear of failure holding you back. When you embrace the idea that failure is a natural part of the learning process, you take the focus off of success and shift it toward growth and progress. This mindset shift simplifies your approach to everything in life. You no longer overcomplicate your decisions by worrying about the outcome. You simply take action and learn along the way. It's a liberating way to approach life, as it removes the pressure and allows you to enjoy the process of self-improvement. When you focus on growth and learning, you also begin to prioritize what really matters. You stop wasting energy on things that don't align with your values and goals. This process of simplification, both in your mindset and in your actions, leads to greater clarity and focus. You begin to let go of distractions, unnecessary obligations, and unimportant tasks, and you start focusing on what truly moves you forward. You become more efficient, more effective, and less overwhelmed. One of the most powerful ways to simplify your life is by practicing gratitude. When you focus on what you're thankful for, you shift your perspective from what's lacking to what's abundant. Gratitude allows you to find contentment in the present moment and appreciate the small blessings in your life. Instead of constantly striving for more, you begin to find joy in what you already have. By practicing gratitude regularly, you cultivate a sense of peace and fulfillment that makes it easier to let go of the need to overcomplicate things. When you're grateful, you stop comparing yourself to others, and you stop overthinking everything. You find satisfaction in the simple joys of life, and that leads to a deeper sense of happiness and well-being. Lastly, simplifying your life is about learning to be present. So much of our mental clutter comes from worrying about the future or ruminating on the past. We get caught up in thoughts about what could happen or what we should have done differently. But the truth is, the present moment is all we really have. By focusing on the here and now, you eliminate the distractions and complexities that come from overthinking. You allow yourself to fully experience life without the weight of what might be or what could have been. When you're present, you create space for clarity, calm, and creativity. You stop overcomplicating everything by simply being with what is. To bring everything together, we've covered so many ways to simplify and stop overcomplicating our lives. And now it's time to reflect on the bigger picture. Simplification is not about removing all challenges, stress, or obstacles from our lives, because that's not realistic. Life will always throw curveballs. But what it is about is learning how to make life feel less chaotic by embracing the essential principles of focus, prioritization, and presence. By simplifying your thoughts, your actions, and even your environment, you create the space and clarity needed to truly live the life you want, without feeling overwhelmed by the unnecessary. 1. Important reminder I want to leave with you is that simplifying isn't a one-time event. It's a practice. You don't achieve simplicity and then stop. It's about continuously checking in with yourself and being mindful of the ways you might be overcomplicating things. As life changes, your priorities will shift, and so too will the need to simplify in different areas. Maybe one season of your life requires you to scale back on your career commitments, while another might call for simplifying your social life or the way you manage your finances. The beauty of simplicity is that it's flexible and adaptable. It's a mindset, a way of approaching challenges, and an ongoing process of evaluation. As you learn to simplify, you'll notice that your stress levels decrease, your energy increases, and your ability to focus improves. You'll have more time and mental space for what truly matters to you, whether that's personal growth, relationships, or simply enjoying the present moment. In the end, life doesn't have to be as complicated as we often make it. We are the ones who overcomplicate things, whether it's through perfectionism, overthinking, unnecessary obligations, or simply trying to do everything at once. But by embracing the principles of simplicity, you give yourself the power to reduce that complexity and create a life that feels lighter, more purposeful, and more fulfilling. So as you continue your journey, remember, simplifying doesn't mean you're giving up on your goals, your dreams, or your ambitions. It means you're choosing to pursue them in a way that feels sustainable, meaningful, and aligned with who you are. You don't need to complicate everything. You don't need to strive for perfection. You don't need to make everything more difficult than it has to be. Start small, take intentional action, and embrace the simplicity of life. Trust that you'll get where you need to go, step by step, without overloading yourself with unnecessary complexity. And most importantly, be kind to yourself along the way. Simplifying is a journey, not a destination. Remember, life is much easier than we make it. If we learn to step back, focus on the essentials, and let go of the things that don't serve us, we can navigate this world with a clearer mind, more energy, and a sense of inner peace. It all starts with the decision to stop overcomplicating and to start living with simplicity, mindfulness, and intention.